conversations now so that in the future it's a lot easier. And because sometimes you're not financially compatible. If you are a big budgeter and thrifty and spending and you have specific ideals and goals about money, and someone is just complete opposite, that's something you want to know early on, right? Where you could say, okay, I guess it's not that bad. Or you could say, no, that's a red flag for me. I actually don't want to proceed any further. And I always wonder, I'm like, we will take our clothing off, but we won't financially, it's like both are very intimate and both impact us tremendously, right? So if on that first date you don't feel like talking about money, on the second, third, fourth day, maybe start weaving it in slowly into conversation because it is going to impact every step of your relationship. If this is a serious relationship that you want to pursue and you want to make sure it goes into marriage or whatever it is that is your end goal, you want to make sure that you are financially protecting yourself, that you are financially understanding how you both come to the table, because that is intimate, but also very, very, very necessary.
Today's guest is a first generation Haitian American helping millennials and Gen Z restructure their relationship with money. She attended Adelphi University and graduated cum laude with a BA in English Literature and an MA in Adolescent Education. She went out to write and produce the award-winning web series Millennial in Debt, which highlighted the overwhelming nature of navigating adulthood due to a lack of financial education. Her main objective is to make conversations about money the norm. She hopes to increase millennial opportunities to obtain financial freedom and build generational wealth. Let's welcome the author of So This Is Why I'm Broke: Lessons on Financial Literacy, Passive Income, and Generational Wealth, the Beyonce of Personal Finance, Melissa Jean-Baptiste. How are you doing this evening, Melissa?
I am well. Thank you so much for having me. It was such a pleasure. And thank you so much for that warm, warm, warm welcome. It's always so beautiful to hear. So thank you so much.
For sure. I'm listening to your book on Audible. Love the book. It is great. You have left no stone
Thank you.
unturned. You touch on everything. That book is, I think, is essential for anybody that's willing to learn about finances, that's willing to put in the work that's necessary, because
Thank you.
everything is detailed. Huge fan of the work. Love the Instagram page. Love everything about it. So thanks again for becoming a guest today. I want to ask you, who
Of course.
inspired you to become the woman you are today?
I love that question. I know my brothers, whenever they hear me talk about it, they get so like, oh, but my two younger brothers are absolutely my biggest inspiration in pretty much everything that I do. I am a first gen, of course, but I'm also the eldest daughter. And so I had to lead by charge and make sure that everything that I was doing was to make sure that it was an example for them. And so my middle brother, and he's heard this story a million times, is the reason that I actually got into education in the first place because he wrote one of the saddest college essays I've ever heard in my life, where he talks about how public school teachers do not care about you. And he did end up getting a scholarship to college with that essay, but I didn't want him actually feeling that way about education or feeling that way about the classroom. And I didn't want anyone who looked like him, sounded like him, acted like him, thought like him to feel that way about education or in the classroom. And so I became a teacher to really become a safe space for people like him and my youngest brother to thrive and do well. And so I teach in New York, and we have this like 4 to 6 week period where the finals are over, regions are over, everything's done, but school is not officially over.
Mhm.
And so I did not know what to do with that time. I was just like, I don't know, what do y'all want to do? And so I surveyed them, I asked them, and all of them answered and said, we want to learn about money. We don't know anything about money. We don't know how to cash a check. And that shows you how old I've been in the classroom, a check. And so I essentially was just like, well, I don't know anything about money either. All I have is really my personal finance journey. But I was an English teacher. I don't know much about money. And so in doing research and teaching myself in order to teach them, I wanted to create another safe space for Gen Z, for millennials like me to ask questions, to feel comfortable, to feel safe, not knowing and without understanding, but not feeling like it's too late. And so teaching them about opening a high yield savings account, teaching them about opening a Roth IRA with their first job at 16, 17 years old really was impactful and has led the charge to changing, the trajectory of where they end up. And so that is really how Millennial in Debt was born. I wanted to create a safe space for people who looked and sounded like me to ask questions without feeling that shame.
Yeah. Wow. I love it. That's beautiful because
Thank
you just,
you.
looking out for family, right?
Right. That's how it started. And I'm like, I want to help everybody know how to do money.
Well, you're out here helping people because I mean, you're helping me in the
Trying.
book alone.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
For sure. What are your recommendations for managing spending during the holiday season?
That is a big one. And so I want to start off by telling everyone listening that we don't like everybody. If for some reason the holidays makes us feel, the holiday spirit, like I need to give a gift to everybody. You don't. Okay. So the first thing I want you to do is I want you to sit down and really make a list. Make a list of your non-negotiables. Who are the people that really matter to you? Who are the people that you really want to give a gift? Then you're going to do a budget, the big B, right? You're going to sit down, you're going to calculate your income. How much money is coming in every month? How much money is going out every month. And whatever is left over, I like to call that your glorious gap. Whatever is left over, that's how much money you want to use as your stopgap. So that if I have $500 at the end of the month to spend, that is how much I'm spending for the holidays. I'm not spending 501 and I'm definitely not spending thousands. And so now I have this list and I have the income that I know, okay, I've paid off my bills. I'm not going to go into debt. I have $500. So now I can decide how much I want to spend on each gift and create a strategy and become a lot more creative than just, swipe, I'm going to buy this, I'm going to buy that. Now I have a plan. And when we do this and we go within this plan, when January comes, we haven't overspent, we're not in debt, we're not paying off credit card bills, and we still have enjoyed our holidays within our means.
Mm, I love that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, because I only can imagine, like you said, $501 if you don't.
Yeah, not even the $1. I'm
Yeah, because the thing about budgeting is it set these boundaries for you. And like you said, when January rolled around, you're not, thousands of dollars in debt because you
right.
became friendly in December.
Exactly. Like I don't even talk to you for the entire year. Why am I buying you something? It just happens. I know it's natural, but it's just like stick to the list, right? You can send a nice farewell hello on the internet, like Merry, Happy Holidays. But when it comes to our gifting, we want to stick to that budget.
Yes, for sure. No, I love it. What are some key tips for dating financially responsibly?
That is that's a loaded question. I think so. I know it's very taboo still, and we're trying to break that taboo to discuss money. And I'm not telling you to come out the bat on your first date to say, what does your 401k portfolio look like? We're not doing that. But
Mm,
I do think early on, especially when you're going into the holidays with someone for the first time, I think it's really important to discuss the basics of money, right? Because at some point, that is going to impact you, whether you decide to become official, whether you have to move in, whether you have to get married, whatever it is. So you want to really start having those conversations and talk about, like I said with the list, your non-negotiables. I like to say, what are your value spends? That's how I open up the conversation because it lets me understand what really matters to you. And then things that we're just like, we don't really need to spend money on that. So if I really, really, really love going out to eat, and that's not something you really enjoy, then we could have conversations on how we're going to go, meet in the middle and what is that expense going to look like together. Because your partner might say, I don't like going out to eat, I'm not going to spend this. And it's like, okay, well, this is going to be something I add to the byline of my budget that when we do go out, I'm going to pay this tab. Or when we go do something that you like, perhaps you'll pay this tab, or maybe we'll be splitting certain things. But you need to have those conversations, as uncomfortable as they may seem,
yeah.
because they make it down the line a lot easier when the big things come, right? Where you have to buy appliances together, or you have to buy a mattress together, or you're merging your bank accounts together. Those conversations are a lot harder than talking about, well, what are your value spends and what do we want to make sure we're budgeting in for dates or budgeting on certain things. So have the conversations now so that in the future it's a lot easier. And because sometimes you're not financially compatible. If you are a big budgeter and thrifty and spending and you have specific ideals and goals about money and someone is just complete opposite,
Mm,
that's something you want to know early on, right? Where you could say, okay, I guess it's not that bad. Or you could say, no, that's a red flag for me. I actually don't want to
mm.
proceed any further. But if you don't have the conversation, you'll never know.
Yeah, I agree. Do you think that would you write someone off if you're not compatible financially? Like, do you just end the relationship or like you're dating, right? And you're like,
Right.
no, I don't think this will work. Is that a legitimate reason to sever ties with someone?
I really like this question. And I think that question is going to be different or have a different answer at the different stages in life you are. Because at 21, I'm like, I don't care. At 21, I was like, hey, we're not financially compatible. We're not, it's fine, like no big deal. But now, where I'm a homeowner and I'm trying to retire in a certain amount of time, or, if we're discussing if we want to have kids, we need to be on a similar path or heading in the same direction if we're going to be interweaving our lives together in this way, because you get married, you have kids, your money's interwoven. It doesn't matter if you have separate accounts, your money is one because you have a child together. So I think if you're 20 years old and they're not financially compatible, you might be a little more like, no big deal. But as older as you get, it might be something that's a lot more important to you, something that is a deal breaker for you. So I think it's different for different people. I think for myself at this current stage in life, I would not, if someone's completely, we're on completely different wavelengths, I don't know if I'd be able to really move forward and say like, oh, we're making a different salary. I don't think that's a deal breaker. I know that's is a deal breaker. I think if
Do you think there's pressure on millennials to spend more on dating to make a good impression? And how can they navigate this?
yes, 100% yes. I think millennials, because we were the generation that first really was on and those apps, it just became a big. So if I know this person that I spent enough to impress them or show them a good time, but I feel like that's also what's kind of keeping us stuck in this, but I'm going to spend all my money, right? Am I compatible or have a conversation, or certainly don't personally. But if we don't have those conversations, we're simply just going off what's expected of us from podcasts or from for the both of us. So I definitely think millennials, unfortunately, we are the guinea pigs for everything. Body on a first date in the right way.
Mm, mm, mm. Yeah, that's so much to break down, but uh I want to uh take a quick break for a second, and I want to discuss my wife and I, we created an intimacy card deck specifically for relationships, dating, no matter which phase you are in. This is questions that are tough to ask, and husband and wife coming together and
Yeah.
building this intimacy card deck. So it's great for date nights as well as in a relationship, even if you're married. So, Melissa, I want to ask you one question from the day.
Yes, I'm excited. Go for it.
Okay, for sure. How do you manage conflicts or disagreements within a relationship?
Oh, tough question. So I think what is like unfair a little bit, but I'm still gonna answer the question. Our cheat code is my partner and I have known each other since we were 9. So we've been best friends since we were 9. And we've been dating on and off since we were 16. So we kind of grown up together and learned how to argue with each other and how to handle conflict at the different phases of our lives, right? So 21-year-old Melissa is very different than 36-year-old Melissa for sure. But I think something that's important, and I think something that we do really well in our relationship when it comes to conflict is we address the conflict that is happening in the moment. And I think a lot of times relationships, and I'm not a relationship guru, but I think a lot of times because we say something like, oh, little cuts, we don't let little cuts build up because in 5 years, in 10 years, those little cuts will become unbearable, right? So we discuss the problem as it occurs and we don't bring up other grievances because now is not this conflict right here is about this conflict. And I think that's really what has helped us focus in and discuss when things happen, because I don't want to talk about something that happened 3 months ago. I want to talk about you didn't load the dishwasher today, right? So that's something that I really appreciate that we do. And we had to learn after a long amount of time how to do that and not just let things build up. Because I used to be the queen of passive aggressive. I'm not even gonna lie. I used to be like, oh, okay, that's cool. And it was not cool. It was not cool
Wow.
at all. Right. But 36-year-old Melissa's very calm now. She's
Yeah.
tired. She just want to do like get through the day. So that's, I think, super important.
Yeah, for sure. No, I love it for sure. Because a lot of times it's hard for people to really resolve conflict. I think that's something that we don't discuss enough. And I just thought it was something new. Just wanted to hear your feedback on that from
I
you.
love that question. I love that game. But tell me where to find that game, that deck.
Yes, for sure. It's at my website, scarytoremarry.com. It'll be
Nice.
linked in the description, as
Yeah.
long as in the description with everything else.
Cool.
Uh, okay, so how can we'll get back to the money now?
Yeah. I'm good, whatever. I'm like free flow.
Awesome, I love it. How can couples set financial boundaries early in a relationship?
Ooh. So I think besides having those conversations, you really want to decide who's going to essentially be handling certain things and when are you going to come together to have those conversations. I'll use myself for example. So my partner and I do not have accounts that are together. And so I essentially pay like the mortgage and the homeowner's insurance, and he pays for everything else. And so we don't need to kind of like put the money together because it's like, okay, I'm going to pay for this, you're going to pay for that. But things that both of us use, or things that are important to both of us, or things that might have a really big sticker price and we're just like, whoa, like that wasn't expected, we'll come together to have a conversation on how we're going to split that money up or if we're going to do some sort of payment plan. And I think that's a really healthy boundary, right? So I don't, come in and say, hey, give me $200 for this or give me for that. It's just like, that's not really a part of how we navigate money. So we are trying to buy a couch right now.
Mhm.
And we sat down and we're like, okay, well, what should be the budget for this couch because we decide we're going to split the couch 50-50. And so that is a part of our boundaries where I can't just decide, okay, well, we're going to get a $2,000 couch and we're going to split 50-50. That's not how it goes because it's just like, maybe he doesn't have the $1,000 to put towards the couch, or maybe he's like, okay, we can do this, we can work this $1,000. But I think in having those conversations and defining how we use our money together collectively without connecting our accounts is a healthy boundary for us because we still have those open conversations, but we also know what we can and can't do. And we have, because we have a small space, I think also helps with the budget boundaries, is we have a one in, one out. So we have our value spends, we have things that matter to us, and we use our own money for it. But because we're sharing a space and because we have future goals that we want to hit together financially, it's just like, well, you're not going to buy 90 pairs of sneakers this month. Like that's not happening. So, because he's a sneakerhead. So he's
Yeah.
like, okay, he's like, I'm going to buy one pair, but I'm either going to sell or donate or give away another pair. So that same thing for makeup for me. He's just like, oh, you went to Sephora. It's like, well, what are we getting rid of? It's like, oh my goodness. But that really helps with our boundaries because we still get to spend money the way we want, but we have other healthy boundaries in the home that kind of make it like, okay, it's a good conversation to have. Those
Mm.
Sephora conversations were so hard though, because I was like, I wanted to try this. It's like, yeah, you have 95 blushes. One's got to go.
So how did you both agree? How did you both agree to come up with that system? It was just basically just a conversation, or did you view money a certain way and he viewed money a certain way, and then you both kind of
Yes. We definitely view money differently but similar, right? So we're on the same wavelength, the same path where we want to, buy properties, we want to start, but we want to do certain things. So we're just like, okay, this is the money we're going to put aside for that, and when it comes time to do that, we'll put that money together. But the one in, one out really was just like we were falling over each other's things, and it's just like, okay, we're going to do a spring cleaning and we're going to decide on a system together that makes sense for our money and for our space. And that was really the best compromise. And honestly, it really does keep us honest and it keeps the house from being super cluttered because I can be a hoarder sometimes. I want to keep everything all the time. He's just like, girl, no, that's not happening. But it's a nice, healthy conversation and not just like a flat out no. So I appreciate that because we all need sometimes to reel it in. Or we all need sometimes for someone to help us reel it in, but you don't want to feel like you're being attacked. And I think that's what's so important when you're talking about money or anything in a relationship. You really want it to be a conversation, a dialogue, and not do as I say or do like, no, like that's not how we do it together. Right. So
Mhm.
that's how I like to navigate.
I love it because I used to wonder sometimes, like when people get into relationships, you got to have the conversation because one person might think I
Yeah.
have it right as far as spending because
Yeah.
my credit score is 750 and your credit score is,
Yeah.
you know, that
It's
whole
not like that, right? Everyone has different circumstances or different backgrounds. So it's like we're not coming in at the same level, but we can still have a conversation on how to navigate into the future together. And I think that's so important.
I love that. I love it. How can someone identify financial red flags in a new relationship?
Oh, yes. I think I know we're heavy on the conversations, but honestly, I like to be an open book about money especially, but about a lot of things because it's really important to build a relationship from the beginning with a strong foundation. And I think identifying red flags, sometimes some flags could look purple, they could look blue, like you're not really noticing. But that value spend question, because I love talking about value spends all the time, that value spend question will start to lead you in the right direction of identifying other red flags, right? Because if this person is just like, I want to live for today, I like to spend, 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 then I'm like, oh, right. Then my follow-up question might be, well, what are you always spending on? And then it's like, oh, so that's like you lead into the conversation. But a gentle, great start is, oh, what do you value? Like, what are your value spends? And it
Mhm.
doesn't have to be like, oh, you could say name three. And I can even go first to lead the way, right? I'm like, I value traveling. I value spending time with family over with experiences. And I value personal care, self-care. And then if they like, oh, well, how do you fund those? And I could talk about that. So we're opening the dialogue without it feeling like an attack. And when you hear those answers, those will be your red flag identifiers. If they're just like, oh no, I don't save because I want to live like it's my last day. I want a YOLO. It's just like, oh no. Wait, hold on. Like we need to let's pump the brakes. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
So I think that's always leading with curiosity and conversation and not attacking is how you'll be able to lay that foundation, really make it comfortable, and identify any red flags you need to identify.
That's good. I like that. Yeah, because I think we don't have these conversations enough.
No. And the thing is, it's not even that we don't have you need it's a constant conversation. We
Hmm.
need to talk. So like recently I was like, oh, I think I want to go back to school. So I had that conversation because it's like, well, what is that going to look like financially for the both of us? What is that going to look like time-wise for the both of us? These are conversations that we didn't have before. But yes, we talk about money, but you want to keep having those conversations. And so I say another really easy way, especially if you live with your partner or you're married or you're, in a deep, deep, deep relationship, go on a money date together. That is really like that's when you're like, okay, we are really getting vulnerable with each other because I'm sitting looking at my budget and all my expenses, and you're sitting looking at your budget and all your expenses, and we're talking like, oh dang, like I sit down and say, oh, I really spent too much at Sephora this month. I need to make sure next month I don't do that because in 3 months, we're trying to put this down payment. And he was like, oh, yeah, I really spent too much at Chipotle, which he sometimes does spend a lot at Chipotle. And he's like, okay, so we're going to I'm going to cook meals more. So I don't, so that's so vulnerable to me to go on a money date together and really discuss areas where these were my strengths this month. These were my weaknesses this month. What were your strengths? What were your weaknesses? How can we come together to support each other? And doing that every month helps to keep that conversation going. I also know because one of my friends, We Bravely Go, shout out to her, she splits a lot of expenses. And so because she gets the credit card points. So she'll swipe everything for the month for the household. And when they go on their money date together, she'll show the itemization and then she'll say, okay, like, can you just Venmo me or Zelle me your part or your share for this, this, and this? And I think that's so great because it's just like, yes, let's have a conversation and do what works for us in our relationship. It's going to look different in someone else's relationship.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, that's good. And now that you talk about it, I want to ask you about credit cards. Like, how do you, because there's so much conversation around that, right?
Yeah.
You have the whole Dave Ramsey thing going on, and then,
Yeah.
you have the whole, freedom with just swiping.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that, on credit cards in
I
general?
love credit cards, but I love credit cards used responsibly. So the thing is, whenever I talk about credit card points, I'm always just like, before I tell you all the amazing things that I've done and got with credit card points, because that's the thing, right? That's on social media. Like, that's all I did. I'm going to tell you all that. And it was great, 100%. But I'm also going to tell you that I don't carry a balance. And I don't want you to carry a balance. So that means I don't want you overspending trying to earn a sign on bonus. No, or I don't want you getting a credit card just because I have it and it has an annual fee, but you want to get those all those points. Are you going to use the card in a way where that annual fee makes sense? Is that annual fee something you can afford? Right. So I like to be completely transparent. I pay almost $900 in annual fees in my two credit cards, two Amex cards, which I love them, but it's worth it for me because one is a business card. So I'm putting business expenses on it. And the other one, I buy all the groceries, I buy all those things. So that makes sense. And when I earn those points, I get cash back or I do this. So it is amazing. But we need to talk about credit card health before we talk about the credit card rewards. And I
Mm,
think that's a really big thing that's missing in the conversation is am I able to swipe and pay this off at the end of the month? Am I able to swipe and not pay interest? Am I able to swipe and pay this on time so my credit score is not impacted and doesn't decrease? Do I understand what my credit score is made out of? So I think we could talk about credit cards all the time, how much I love them. I don't even have a debit card. Every time I tell people that, they're like, what? I'm like, no, I put everything on my credit card, but also every month when I go on that money date, I pay that credit card completely off and I go into the new month with a balance of zero. So that is super important. And I even tell people like you need to know when your closing date is and when your due date is. Those are two different dates. And
mhm,
the reason you want to know the closing date is because that's the date that impacts your credit score, not the due date of the payment. So your closing date is going to, let's say it's December 2nd. That's when Capital One, Citibank, they're like, oh, we're calling up Experian. Hey, Experian, she has a balance of $500. And that's when your credit score takes a little bit of a dip because your debt has increased. So I like to pay my debt before my statement closes. And that I'm not waiting till the due date of the credit card because they've already reported me. So I want them reporting zero, right? So those are things like you need to know the intricacies of your credit score in your credit report so that the rewards make sense, so that it really is a benefit without any of the down parts of having a credit card.
mm. That's good. Yeah. And I'm glad you broke that down because a lot of times people just thinking, I'm just going to pay on it right before the date or I'm paying on the day of.
No, no. The closing date, when the statement closes, that's the date you want to beat, right? So if it closes December 1st, pay the bill November 30th. That's the trick. That is the trick.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And it seems like when it comes to finances, it seems like this is such a tough topic. It's very intimate, I would say. And it seems
Yes.
like we put it on the back burner when it comes to dating and relationships. And how do you why is it so hard for us just to discuss finances and even going on a first date? Like people are just like, I don't want to talk about none of this stuff.
Yeah. And I always wonder, I'm like, we will take our clothing off, but we won't financially. It's like both are very intimate and both impact us tremendously, right? So if on that first date you don't feel like talking about money, on the second, third, fourth date, maybe start weaving it in slowly into conversation because it is going to impact every step of your relationship. If this is a serious relationship that you want to pursue and you want to make sure it goes into marriage or whatever it is that is your end goal, you want to make sure that you are financially protecting yourself, that you are financially understanding how you both come to the table, because that is intimate, but also very, very, very necessary.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think it's put on the back burner, one, mainly for shame, right? Money has brought a lot of shame and embarrassment. And I think that is because financial literacy is not something that is mandated in every single state. It's improving, but it's not nationwide. It's not mandatory to learn financial literacy. It's not mandatory to understand an IRA. It's not mandatory to even have a 401k. It's like
Yeah.
you can opt in if you want, if your job offers, but you don't have to prepare for retirement. And so I think because people for so long has been like, oh, hush, don't talk about money, don't ask about money, don't learn about money. So now when I'm going on this date, I don't want to seem like I'm stupid. I don't want to seem embarrassed. I don't want to seem like I don't understand something that my potential partner might know or they might not know. But I don't want to bring that to the table because it makes me uncomfortable. But I think not knowing is worse. Not knowing how much debt your partner has and you get married and guess what? Now that debt, you're liable for it. And you didn't even know about it, but you're married. So it's like you need to have these conversations before we sign anything, even with estate planning. I was helping my parents estate plan. I'm like, you might think it's a little morbid because it's like, well, I don't want to talk about when we die. And I'm like, you may not want to talk about it, but when it happens, the state is going to come in and say, thank you, we'll talk about it, and they will decide where your money goes. You don't want that. You don't want
Yeah.
I live in New York. I don't want New York to say, you know what? We're gonna take this 401k. We might give it to her brother. We might keep it. So we don't want that. You want to take your control, and having control means understanding financial literacy and having the discussion about financial literacy.
Yes, that is so good because I'm thinking about an episode to discuss estate planning
Yeah,
because that's something that, again, another topic that we don't talk about enough. I
right.
mean, it's promised to us that we will no longer be here one day. So why
But I
avoid the
want my
conversation?
money to, go to the ones I love and not to New York. I love New York, but they don't need any more of my money. Like our taxes are high enough. So I want to make sure my money is going to the right people when
Yeah.
I am gone.
I know that's right. I love it. No, and that was something that stuck with me that you said that I thought was so good. You said, people are quick to take their clothes off before they know
Yeah,
anything about your
it's
finances.
like, dang, let's like it's intimate, but it's just like it's the same level, y'all. We if we could talk about all these other things, we could talk about a Roth IRA. It's okay. I promise it will be okay at the end of the conversation.
Oh God, that is so good. Yeah, and that's a show within itself. Um, I want to can we just do a bonus round real quick? I
Of
want to.
course.
Okay, all right. So this is Melissa Uncut. So I have some random questions that I have, and there's no wrong answer. So
Okay.
here we go. All right. What is the biggest mistake you see men make when it comes to dating?
I think being afraid to have difficult, real conversations that require like emotional intelligence, not just because I
Mhm.
think men are very smart, and I know that's like, gonna be like, oh my God, you're a feminist. I am, ladies, but I think men are trained to be very smart, to be the engineers, to be, but not the emotional intelligence. And I think you need both. You need both, and I think that is the biggest mistake is they don't want to tap into their emotional intelligence and really be vulnerable emotionally. So
Wow.
we gotta do a little better. But I've been in therapy for very long, so that's I recommend therapy to everybody.
Yes. Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, I am a fan. I've got so much revelation
Thank
in
you.
therapy. I was just like, oh, that's why
Yes.
I struggle with this. Oh, that's why I have
Yes.
this issue. Oh, okay.
I love therapy. We all need it.
Yes, for sure. I love that answer because men, we get uncomfortable real fast. Like you said, with that
Yeah.
emotional, yeah, because we don't know how somebody might use it. If you might use it against us,
Exactly.
like we're not
Right.
sure, you know.
Right. I know. And that is unfortunate. That is definitely a societal. Like I said, I had two brothers, so I was very tapped in. I was like, please be nice to like just, listen. And they are phenomenal men, I will
Yeah.
say. And my partner as well. But again, I've known him since he was a kid. So it's different. But it's just like it's all right to be emotionally vulnerable. It is okay.
Mhm. Yes, yes, it is for sure. Oh well, I guess I was gonna ask you this question, but I guess you've been with your significant other for years, so I guess
Yes.
that question doesn't make any sense.
Forever.
So from seeing your parents' relationship, what did it teach you about relationships?
Yeah, so my parents were born in Haiti. They came when they were fairly young, but they definitely still had a lot of Haiti structure and societal expectations ingrained in them. And I was very, very, very specific in my own personal relationship, and I think my brothers as well, in really leaning into conversation, but also being each other's like sounding board. I think my parents were phenomenal parents, like phenomenal 10 out of 10, but I think they struggled a lot to see each other as like, we are each other's part. Like I'm gonna bounce some ideas off of you. They're like, I'm gonna go talk to my brother or my sister or whatever. I'm like, no, whenever I have an idea, I love running to my partner, like, what do you think about this idea? Like, what do you think? And having it, or like he helps me pick out an outfit. So I really think it's super important to be open to having conversations and being each other's sounding board. And that is one of my favorite parts of my relationship is that I can go and tell him like any crazy wacky thing and he'll listen. He's like, oh, okay. And have input. So I really think in seeing that in my parents' relationship. I was
Yeah.
just like, I kind of want a little bit of the opposite of that. So go find that, which I did, thankfully.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's good. I think that's a deep form of intimacy, right? That you can
I
actually just
agree.
say something and like they actually rap with you. They're like, oh, okay.
Yes, I
Yeah.
agree. Even if it's something as silly as an outfit, it's just like I'm like, what do you think of my outfit with these shoes? He's like, I think the other. I'm like, I love that because you're not just like saying like, yeah, yeah, it looks good. You're actually like engaging with my madness. So I think that's so important.
Love it. Love it. Who makes a better spouse? Someone never married or someone divorced?
Ooh, my goodness. I truly don't know. I don't know. I've never been married.
Hmm?
Um, I have a friend that has been divorced, and I do think she is such a much, much better partner now than when she was with her husband. So, strictly off of that experience of me seeing that, I'm gonna go with someone who's divorced because
Mhm.
they know, like because marriage is hard, right? Marriage is hard. And so I think someone who's experienced it and knows what they've done wrong or understands what their partner, what they don't want, they might be able to navigate it a little better second go around. I don't know. So I'm going only based off her. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. No, there's no wrong answer.
Yeah.
No, there's no wrong answer. Okay, so what's harder for you to say? Is it I apologize, I need help, I love you, or I was wrong?
I need help is so hard because again, I think it's my first gen eldest daughter syndrome. I think I could do 50 million things a day and carry all the weights on my shoulder without ever asking. And my partner will literally have to tell me, like, slow down. Like, did you eat today? Did you sleep? He's like, do you want to take a nap? Do you want me to do that? Like, and he will ask me like things that he can do. And I'm just like, no, it's okay. And he'll just like sit down. He's like, I'm gonna do it. He's like, I'm gonna cook. I'm going to do the clean. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
You don't need to do this. And so I think I need more, I guess, training, therapy, and asking for help. But if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. And that's an all. If I'm wrong, I'm like, oh, I'm wrong, or I apologize. I say I love you to everyone every day. So, but like, I need help. You will almost never hear me say that.
Yeah.
Almost never. He's just like, are you overwhelmed? I'm like, I'm good. I'm not. I always say I'm good, but I'm not. I'm not. So that's definitely my biggest like weakness, I think.
For sure. Last question. Is it easier to love yourself or someone else?
I think it's easier to love someone else because we tend to see all the negative things about ourselves magnified.
Mhm.
Where it's just like, oh, look at the rolls on my stomach, or oh my God, I did such a bad job, I am my biggest critic. And where even with like editing and filming things, I'll put something on like, oh my God, this was trash, like no one's gonna care. And everyone's like, this is the best thing you've ever put out. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? Like, you didn't see that mistake at second 35. So
Mhm.
I think because we're our own biggest critics and we spend the most time with ourselves, right? So we have the most time to nitpick at ourselves, be in our own heads, think all these thoughts that are just simply not true. That it's so much easier to love and give love to, other imperfect people. We are imperfect, but it's just like other people's imperfections don't seem as big as our own. And so I
Mhm.
definitely feel like I freely give love out and then I'll sit in a corner like I can't believe I didn't run that mile fast enough and I can't believe the chicken was too salty. And it's just like literally it's like girl, you're fine. Like you're fine. It's okay. But yeah, that was such a very deep question.
Yeah, for sure. No, this has been a phenomenal
Oh
episode.
my God, thank
Um,
you.
Melissa, I want to acknowledge you for just being a voice
Oh,
for helping people financially because again, these are the conversations we aren't having. And so to have that voice to be able to speak out loud about it, and having the courage to being an author and even putting your life out there, right? Even,
thank
listening to your book and just hearing some of the things that you witnessed. So uh
yeah,
yeah, so and
wild
having
times.
yeah, right. Having the courage to bounce back and be able to share your story with the world. So definitely want to acknowledge you for those things. Can you let everyone know how they can get in touch with you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I am online all the time. I am mostly on Instagram and Threads. That's how we connected.
I love
At Millennial in Debt. I'm also millennialindebt.com if you like a lot more long form. I'm also Millennial in Debt on YouTube. So you can pretty much find me anywhere as Millennial in Debt. That is me.
for sure. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. Brave Arts community, you heard it here. Make sure you connect with Melissa because she has
Thank
so
you.
much great content.
Thank you so
I'm a
much.
huge fan of her work as well. So everything will be linked up in the description. If you are watching this via YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button, share this with a friend, put this video in your group chat when you're talking to
Yes,
your friends and stuff. Yeah, right. Because y'all be
do that.
talking. Yeah,
Yeah, let's open up the conversation. Come on.
for sure. There you go.
Yeah.
If you are listening to this via podcast, make sure you hit the subscribe button, leave a rating and review. Would love to hear from you. By doing so, it'll put you in a drawing for a free Amazon gift card. Who doesn't like free stuff? So this
Correct.
is Sean Heineman with special guest.
Melissa, Millennial in Debt.
All right, Bravehearts community, take care.